Hey everybody, Rich here, South Florida Beekeeping with Rich. I'm going to apologize in advance for the fact that there's going to be a lot of background noise. We have to do this video in the front yard, and unfortunately, uh, we live on a busy street that people shortcut through our neighborhood between two major roadways. So it's almost impossible to not get a bunch of background noise. Okay, so today's video is about punkwood. The reason this video is being shot today is that Hurricane Idalia came through yesterday. Today is Thursday. You'll see this Friday, so you'll see this video tomorrow. But Idalia came through on the other side of the state and the other end of the state, which means we didn't get anything except some high winds from some outer bands and such. And high winds mean that punkwood falls out of the trees, manna from heaven. This is not a chore to go pick up. This is great beekeeping fuel. And I just wanted to do a little video on it. So, this is what I picked up this morning. Some of it I've chopped up, just broken into pieces and thrown in those jars up there, and we'll get to that in just a second. Punkwood is one of the best things to use in your smoker because once it gets lit, it smolders and stays lit for a long time. Burns slowly. It's a nice concentrated fuel. But Rich, I hear you saying, you can just buy wood pellets for that. Yeah, I've got those wood pellets and I don't use them in my smoker very often because they are good wood. They burn really hot. When I was first working with trying to see how well I might like using the wood stove pellets in the smoker, I got the smoker so hot that the metal on the sides was red. That's too hot. You can fry bees that way. Punkwood like this, not so much. I mean, it smolders. It doesn't really flame at all. That's why you don't use rotten wood in your fire when you go camping, because all you get is lots of smoke and not a lot of heat. Hey, sounds like a good set of characteristics for your smoker, doesn't it? So, any rate, so here's some smoker fuel that was picked up today. All right. So, do I really want to stick that in my smoker? I don't know. But, you could. Nothing's stopping you. But because I have a chop saw, I use a chop saw with pieces this size. You could just whack at it. Literally, you don't need a hatchet. You could whack at this with a hammer and break it up. But, I use a chop saw. Hold your ears for a second. For bigger pieces like this, and because, hey, I channel my inner Tim Allen, and I just, like using power tools. So bigger pieces like this, I'd work out that way.
One thing I'd like to point out, if you use a power tool, you should be sure to wear safety glasses.
Yes, dear. Be sure to wear safety glasses and gloves, body armor, and whatever else you feel is necessary. For pieces like this, I'll show you my favorite way to do it. If you have a vise, just take the vise, set it about 3/4 of an inch, and break them off. But Rich, why don't I just break them off by hand like this? Well, because if you do it this way, you can get some pretty well-regulated sizes. Not terribly graceful, but there you go. Okay, now, of course, for smaller pieces, again, yeah, you can break them off with your fingers. If they're punkwood, you probably don't really need to do anything but that because, it's rotten wood.
Now you keep using the word punkwood.
I'll show you.
What's the definition of punkwood?
Well, the absolute best definition of punkwood is this right here. This is rotten wood.
And it crumbles.
That had most of the lignin in it deteriorated either by insect action or by simply getting old.
So it's basically rotted.
It's rotten wood,
okay.
But it's a dry rot wood. Now, the piece I just did, obviously you could just do with your fingers like this. Yeah, let's see if we can find a piece. Yeah, that stuff over here is from the tree on the side of the house, which is a good self-pruning tree, which means that shaded branches die quickly, and they stay on the small side. There'd be a point where you might want to be doing this. Just take a pair of pliers, you know, smaller stuff than what you want to put over there, but stuff that isn't so rotten that it's just crumbling in your fingers. This is almost to the point of being firewood type area. So be careful. You do want it to break easily, you know, like this. I mean, you can crumble this. That's in the ideal range for this. Hey, Rich, would it be better if I took the outer bark off? Yeah, but that'd be a lot of work and for very little return. And I don't know about you guys, but I dump my smoker into a bucket when I'm ready to clean it out. And that bucket gets dumped on my gardenias and my rose bushes. Oh, does that really do any good? Well, I don't know about you, but I have a Miami Supreme gardenia over here that is supposed to bloom in the month of May. And it's always blooming by April 15th. And it's August 30th today, and it's still blooming. Almost done, I'll grant you, but there's a fresh, newly opened bloom on it today, and it's August 30th. So yeah, I think getting all this extra ash from my smoker has had a definite benefit for both my rose bushes and my gardenias. So brings us to this point. This wood right here, believe it or not, is damp. I'm going to prove that to you because about an hour ago, with some of the stuff that I picked up this morning, I put it in these jars. Now, you're going to have to get over here quick or close. You see all that moisture? You see all that moisture in there? It gets to this point, take the top off for a minute or two. Let that moisture out. Take that off for a minute or two, let that out. Now, these jars over here, which I'll bring over, I did that too a month or so ago. And this one, I must have done a little bit better job because there's no moisture in there at all. There is a little bit of moisture coming out of this because it's out here baking really good. And usually these things were just under my screen in the screen room in the back. So yeah, it gets hotter out here than it does back there. Does it have to be in little jars like this? Nah, you can put it in something like this.
And how long will it take for them to dry out?
Well, it's just a fiddly thing. You put it in the jar, you put the lid on. It does this, you let it evaporate out, you put the lid back on. Usually 3 or 4 times, you're good. If things are a little bit damper, it may be 5 or 6 times. We'll probably do that 3 or 4 times. It's just something you do as you're walking by. You have it outside. So you get it nice and dry. Could you just use it the way it is right now here today, nice and damp? Yeah, because again, it's smoker fuel. As long as you have a good bed of something in your smoker to start with, like pine needles or red cedar shavings or something like that.
Banana leaves?
That's later usually. You get a good bed of shavings in there, you can throw this on there, and once it's lit, you know, it might take a little longer to light because it has to drive off some of the dampness first, but it'll light and stay on there. Then, so, you know, usually something quick and flammable like pine straw, throw some of this in there, throw whatever else you're going to throw in there. And yeah, here in South Florida, I always finish up by packing banana leaves on top of everything else. And on that topic, since this is not worth a video on its own, if you saw this hanging in somebody's backyard, you wouldn't think much of it, would you? It's like, what the heck is that? I have no clue. Okay. How about now? Banana leaves are one of the great, wonderful resources for beekeeping in South Florida. I pity you people in the rest of the country who don't have banana leaves, but we've got them and we'll use them. And this is how I dry out my banana leaves. I don't go through any of this. Yeah, these are as damp as they are. They actually get rained on every day, but they're hanging up off the ground against a wall in full sun. And they have so much oil in them that once dried, they don't reabsorb water unless they're laying on the ground. So I harvest leaves. I just stick them in there and hang them up out of the way. So I always have some. Every now and then I'll process some up and I'll strip. You strip from the top downwards and strip the leaves off of the stems. Then you can chop the stems up and they're great too. I just like to strip the leaves off first. And I always pack the top of the smoker with this because that way I'm never going to have to worry about sparks or anything because this stuff smolders low and slow. But that's the way I do my...
And how'd you make that?
Well, it's just a 2-foot long piece of chicken wire rolled and caught at the ends with a string so I can hang it from something. Keep it off the ground. So, but that's basically what I wanted to show you. Go out there after a good wind, pick up the stuff that falls out of the trees because most trees down here self-prune in the sense that shaded out limbs die and they start dying back and they get deteriorated, then a gust of wind comes along, and if the gust of wind is enough to break that off, you got punkwood. It's ready to go. Just go out and pick it up in the yard. Process it a little bit to make it into a better fuel. Do you have to? No, you could do it that way. See how it's evaporating the water in there already? It's already starting to come out, but there you go. That's really all I wanted to show you here is punkwood. It's a great part of your smoker fuel toolbox, and put a little effort to breaking it into usable chunks. Here's some that's not terribly usable. Great punkwood, larger diameter that I chopped up, but I really don't want to drop that in my smoker. Now I've got to go back and get a hatchet and split this into 4 chunks. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet because there's always so much of this other stuff. That's it. We're done for the day. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends about us, and I'll see you soon.